And none of them seem to have any idea how a goddess of the seas could have any sort of power this so far north in the mountains.
She's not one of the living gods, as you would understand them.
Yeah, Adrex wouldn't hide anything. He'd show off the fame more.
Okay.
He always told him about breath weapon and made his mouth a little frosty just to prove it.
Rust and Brown excuse themselves, go around the side of their sledge to have themselves a brief urination, as orcs are wont to do.
Well-known orc thing.
Oh, 6, I have a cat.
I thought you left the cat back at Breniar's.
Oh, is that an option? I think the cat would die if it was outside, if it was away from me for that.
Listen, what are gods good for if they can't take cats?
Okay, that's fair.
So you're leaving leaving the cat or bringing the cat?
No, we'll leave the cat if the cat's willing to stay. I'm sure the children love cats.
Raazu bluntly presses about the marks on them.
Who are you asking? Because Rust and Brown have stepped away. So you have the young orc.
White?
You're asking White?
Yeah.
How do you word this question?
Now, I'm not a medical expert, but I do know something about scarring, and Raazu will shift the plates of the armor around her neck down a little bit to reveal the burn mark in her neck. And say, I do know a little something about that. What caused that?
And White seems to puff out his chest very pridefully. And he explains that this mark has burned away his old life and his old sins and marks him as one of the lady's preferred.
Who is the lady?
White gets this countenance that looks like he has this great pleasure to make this introduction to you, but the way that he phrases it is almost, it's very indignant. He asks, how is it that you've been traveling in these parts and you have not heard of the great Lady Olaine?
Another omission, perhaps by Bernier at this point. Raazu rolls her eyes.
At this point, Rust and Brown are returning to the fire. Rust tells you that, as he explained before, it's this time tomorrow, about sundown, he expects the next patrol will be through here. He and his men were in the area, essentially investigating what happened to the patrol they were expecting. They have a spot some miles up the road, well inside of the Ice King's borders, where they were expecting the patrol to come by so they could lay their traps, capture them alive, and drag some number of them back to their camp. In light of what has happened to this patrol instead, he extends an invitation to his lady's house, because she will find these stories of how to destroy these patrolmen in open combat very interesting indeed.
Could you tell us more about your lady?
He tells you that she's the finest blacksmith that these lands have ever known.
And what is she... do the metal men eventually die, or do you have a living creature strapped to your body as armor once she's finished with them?
Rust explains that the ladies forge. They put the metal men in alive. But at the end of her workings, they no longer move or make sound. He says that it's his belief that the souls of these creatures become trapped in the metal. Once this happens, weapons made using this process that Lady Olaine has invented and perfected over the decades. Weapons made using this process never become dull. Armor made by this process never becomes dented or destroyed. It's the strongest metal he's ever seen in his years and years of warring.
I suppose we could spare the time, but we do have other business that we need to be on.
He doesn't ask what your destination is. Instead, he asks whether your destination is within the Ice King's borders.
Yes.
And he and Brown exchange a quick glance. And then back to Raazu, he says, "You're going to want to come with us in any event. A powerful ally in the Ice King's borders would do you well, regardless of your destination."
Very well.
Is the lady a vassal of the Ice King?
To that, Rust answers that the lady is vassal to no one, and serves no king, lord, or dragon.
If you take us to your lady, is she gonna freak out at the sight of me and try to stab me in the face?
Brown grins when you ask that. And he says that last he heard, delivering the head of a deserter to one of the Ice King's men was good for a cask of ale.
Is it good ale?
Does she like ale?
He asks if you think you're worth more than that.
You have never seen this man with a set of brewing supplies. He is literally worth far more than any single cask of ale.
How often have we seen this man with the brewing supplies?
All the time.
That one time at the bottom of that lake.
See, Adrex, he asks if you think you're more valuable than a cask of ale.
Maybe.
You don't seem very confident.
We parted on bad terms, by which I mean I ran away and betrayed everything that he believed in and thought bullshit and might have thrown a temper tantrum.
The definition of a deserter, and that's why the Ice King pays to have them returned to him.
I probably...
It's explained that Adrex is going to have probably 5 or 6 days of hard overland marching to shore up his confidence and give the lady a reason to not separate his head from his shoulders.
And
I gotta admit, you're not really selling me on this visit.
I'll tell Birdie in Draconic, make sure the elk are fed for the night, and make sure that all of our provisions are properly stowed. And while doing that, in Thieves' Cant, I will add, keep your guard up. I'm not sure I trust these people.
But you're not sure what tipped you off?
Birdie makes a jerk off.
Well, there's the 31 insight, for one thing.
Birdie nods his head and makes a jerk off motion.
Birdie, make a sleight of hand check.
Like, okay.
He made a jerk off motion.
Like, I was actually making just a regular jerk off motion, but okay. That's a 25.
25? Okay. Just making sure none of these guys saw it.
Oh.
They break down their camp the next morning. Load up everything onto their sledge. And they travel north first, out of sight of the road completely, before turning west and continuing along a kind of west-northwest bearing as the days get colder and colder as you march on. And they seem to be following the contours of the road, like they've done this many, many times before. So the road is out of sight, just over the horizon to your left. Sometimes they stop to do some hunting. They see tracks for some animal or another. They make not a few veiled threats that when you arrive, they may butcher and eat your elks. And they insist on marching through terrible weather that you may instead have wanted to batten down for. They've been living in this terrain for a long time. They're old hats at it. And then eventually, I can get Immiger to cooperate with me here. I said if I can get Immiger to cooperate. There we go. They bring you to what in the distance just looks like a huge glacial wall. It gets very cold very quickly, far too quickly to just be the turning of the seasons and the march of days. Adrex, you immediately know why it's gotten so cold when you've entered the borders of the Ice King's realm. You enter a place pretty much overnight that you're sure has just a layer of permafrost at all times. There's this thick mist that hangs in the air, even when it's not currently snowing, even when the winds are not blowing. This mist, this freezing mist, just hangs in the air. The humanoids all bundle up as they drag their sledge back. And after a day or two of travel through that kind of terrain, you arrive at the side of this glacial wall that just has many pathways that you can see in the distance bore through it. And they lead you into one of these. And eventually you find your way into this camp from this direction. As the sledge comes in, they send the two bugbears in first. As they go into the camp, two more orcs come out to greet you. One of them is marked with blue, and the other one is marked with red. And they at first seem very perturbed that they've brought visitors in this deep. But when they display the state of the metal that they found and give an explanation for why it's in that state, what happened to the patrol they were expecting, you guys get the sense that this is news that blue and red have not heard in a long time. And they're sent off again. Rust gives orders to Silver on where to take the sledge, and the big Goliath just starts dragging it into the camp. And then he turns back to you, and he tells you that you could put up your pavilion anywhere in this area, anywhere in this entrance area that you could find comfortable. And he asks if you want food brought out for you, or drink while waiting for Lady Elaine to summon you.
Very well.
Adrex will absolutely get drunk. Because that'll totally improve this situation.
Sure it will.
That's how you don't freeze in the cold.
None of you actually have a tent or a pavilion to put up, do you?
No.
Okay.
Birdie's just going to park our sleds right here.
So there's several huts set up nearby to you. You have these tall walls going through this ice flow, and looking up you can see the open sky over you. Looking into the camp, in the center, you see a much larger hut with a great plume of smoke coming out the top of it, piping out over the ice flow. Off to the side here, just behind the huts, you see what looks like a kennel They have several large blocks of ice set up, with a gate chiseled into them. The kennel doesn't seem to have anything in it, but looking in the back, you can see where it opens up into a stone cave in the back of the back wall of the kennel. And who is there? That's where you see Blue head back to after he leaves you there. And you get strange glances from the people in the tribe. All of them have the same kind of burn that you've seen. All of them seem to be marked with a color. Most of them are orcs, but you've met already the 2 bugbears and the Goliath. In the distance, from back in this direction, the other side of the camp, you see a very large bear man. Half of his face, again, is burnt like the rest, and his mark is pitch black. There are no women in this camp. These are all men. And eventually...
Hey, Adrex, am I wrong that these are all dragon colors? I don't know as much about dragons, but... seems to be jogging something I heard once.
Rust dragon?
Red? Isn't that a type of dragon?
Yep.
No, that's you.
You've also met an orc that had a bright red mark. Red and blue are the ones who you encountered first coming into the camp.
Yeah. There might be something to that.
Don't think any of us should be left alone.
Yeah.
After a little while, White returns. And next to him is a much taller man, a half-orc. His mark is orange. And Orange is carrying provisions. Under one of his arms, he has a barrel under the crutch of his arm. On the other hand, he's carrying a small sack. He comes up and makes his acquaintance and puts the barrel down in front of Adrex's feet, asks if you have something to tap it with.
It still doesn't have brewing supplies. He keeps losing them. Adrex shakes his head.
He sets the sack down next, tells you that you'll find salted beef, other various, not particularly gourmet foods. He says the bread is fresh but no longer warm from this morning. Then the Orange kind of gives you all a once over, turns back to White, and the two of them head back into the camp. What's next?
I mean, Birdie's got like a loaf of bread in each hand, and he's sitting on the sledge eating.
Okay.
Just tap that keg.
So you're tapping.
Did they leave anything? Yeah, did they leave anything to tap it with, or is it just Adrex is gonna have to pry open his barrel and stick his head in?
He asked you, and you laughed and said he hadn't had brewing supplies in a while.
Yeah.
But he left it there for you to figure it out. Adrex, make an insight check.
Sorry, make a what? Insight check? Alright, that is 6!
A 6. Yeah, no,
Adrex,
you have
don't
no
do
idea
insight.
what they... You have no idea what they expect you to do with this barrel.
I'm gonna leave Adrex to his own devices, that's on that.
Is everybody staying put at the sledge for now?
Yeah.
I mean, they did threaten to eat our elk, so...
But they haven't done it so far.
I mean, I was told not to knife anybody, but if they try to eat our elks...
No, you were told to be careful and keep your eye open because they might.
So, wait, I need to be clear.
Mm-hmm.
I am allowed to knife people. I'm talking to Red.
Yeah, and at some point over the course of the trip, and thieves can't, Red will communicate, and Draconic, yeah, no, I mean, just make sure that they don't make it look like it's one of our bows in the sledge, but if things go down, immediately grab that thing and start shooting. try and make it look like you're not really a threat for a turn or two. I think you're pretty good at that.
I'm gonna grovel, cower, and beg is what I'm gonna do.
After a while, it's easy to see this bear man, even though he's on the other side of the camp, because he's enormous, covered in black fur. And what's he armed with? Armed with a great sword. Eventually, you see him walk halfway across the camp and disappear into this hut against the north wall.
Are we forbidden from lighting a campfire?
They didn't really forbid you from doing anything. They told you that this would be a spot where you could throw up your pavilion.
Raazu starts building a fire.
Okay. After a while, the bear man emerges back from this hut, along with Rust and a very old orc woman. At first, you don't take her for an orc, because she's wearing what is essentially one of those big, gaudy, like, French ball gowns. And you can see this gown is ancient. It's been repaired a million times. It doesn't even really have a color anymore. Once long ago, it might have been yellow. And I don't know what the various parts of a gown are called that make it look like you have, like it fans out from your waist. But a lot of the scaffolding inside of the gown has been broken. You can see where the bottom of it is just dragging in the snow, stained with years and years of mud. And the three of them approach you a little quizzically, on Rust's part at least. And as they get close enough, Rust looks around and watching Raazu finishing building her fire. Says, I expected by now you'd have a tent put up to protect you from the cold.
We don't have one.
He motions to the huge bundles of sticks you're carrying on the sledge. He says, then what are those for?
Raazu cocks her head, looks to Birdie.
Birdie, you and Adrex, the Great Glimmer, told you that these sticks are going to be instrumental in doing this ritual when you finally make your way to this tree. You're going to be using these sticks to trace out giant marks on the ground to do magic stuff.
Birdie hugs the sticks, and in like Kobold pigeon, he starts yelling, "No, my sticks! My sticks don't touch."
Adrex looks at the three of them and shrugs.
The lady orc watches this, and there's no amusement on her face at all. This is a pitiful display as far as she's concerned. She asks Rust, speaking in Orcish. Do any of you understand Orcish?
Adrex does.
Then Adrex, you understand her to say, are you sure these are the ones that claim to have taken down an entire contingent of patrolmen? To which Rust kind of chuckles a bit, says, yes, these are they. The lady turns back and she doesn't say anything to you until Birdie is done with his little display of affection against these bundles of sticks. So the question is, what does Birdie do next?
I just continue to hug the sticks, is all, and don't say anything.
Okay.
Looking very small and kobold-like.
I tried to throw one of those in the fire once, and he cried for a week. It's just not working.
Lady turns to you. She asks if you lead this rabble. Are you the one in charge?
Raazu and I make our decisions by mutual consent. I nod.
She looks over at Adrex. She's like, I presume you are Raazu?
No. That's Raazu.
Who do you point to?
Raazu nods.
You guys have been trying to confuse my NPCs all session. I just want to know how deep the rabbit hole goes. Did you all put all your names in a hat and draw new ones this morning?
Yes, I am the pattern which is formed as the wind blows over the sand.
Raazu, I need you to
Yes.
make me a history check at disadvantage.
Sure. Hey, that's going to be a 3. So, yeah, 4.
A 4?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Now I know what you want from me.
She asks if you're in charge then.
Raazu nods. Yes. In matters of military operations.
She offers you a curtsy in a way that it looks like a defiling mockery of what a curtsy might look like at a noblewoman's court in the Southlands, as she introduces herself as the Lady Elaine.
I'm Raazu. This is Adrex, red. Pattern which is formed as the wind blows over the sand.
When you introduce Red, Rust lets out a guffaw and says, "We've already got a Red." And he looks at Red and says, "Are you coming here to take my man's job?"
No, it's just a misunderstanding. It's a very common name where I'm from.
Lady Elaine looks up at Red as he offers his explanation and kind of gives him a dismissive wave. Turns back to Rust. And Rust shrinks back and away immediately from her. She says that she expected, or she was told, that you would have a tent of your own, but since you don't, she would escort you inside, out of the winds, so that you may tell her your tales.
Of course.
And then the three of them begin moving in this direction, towards the center structure in the middle of this little village.
Alright. Let's head over.
Yep.
Hey, who all's going?
Birdie, do you look like you want to go?
Like, the question is like, do you yeah, Birdie will go.
Okay.
Well, no.
No.
When Birdie starts forward, he jumps off the side of the sledge and starts coming. Black, the large bear man, takes a step forward. Your driver's not welcome.
Red will say in Draconic, stay with the sledge, make sure the elks are properly fed and to work in. I really hope you have your bow ready. In thieves' cant.
Birdie will, like, give a salute.
Raazu will whisper to Red in actually no. Raazu will say in Undercommon, get to Birdie, get Red's horn, blow it. Blow it at the first sign of trouble.
Yeah, I'll sleight of hand my horn over to Birdie. Ew, that's a 7. Here, use this in case you need to get any water.
Coming into the center
Nailed it.
structure here.
Don't you have reliable talent, though?
Not for sleight of hand, I'm not trained in it. I almost took that.
The central hut is built around a huge pit down into the earth. Very, very warm in this room. In fact, the walls of the whole central area weep with the heat coming off of this building. And when you come in, you immediately feel why. This must be the Lady Elaine's forge. The pit goes down several layers into the stone, and she has a large sitting area all around the perimeter. Several rope ladders are thrown down so they can climb in between the different layers. Looking down now, you can see to the bottom of the pit, maybe 60 or 80 feet below, where there's no flames licking up, but right now it's just a dull smolder. But it still feels much hotter in here than you would imagine it should. The lady has a large chair that looks like it was made to look like what perhaps an orc would think a throne would look like in the Southlands. And Black takes a seat in a more mundane-looking metal chair next to her. And then she has stools and things strewn out throughout the rest of this circular room. And bids you to take them and get as close as you need.
Raazu takes a seat.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Adrex will too.
Once you all are in and comfortable, Rust takes his leave. And the Lady Elaine asks how it came to pass that you destroyed 48 patrolmen, just the 4 of you.
Well, one of them's still probably in that bubble. Look at
No, that bubble
Raazu.
vanished in a minute.
Essentially, she's already heard the story from her man, but now she wants to hear it from your lips.
I mean, I don't think we'd change our story any, would we?
No. No reason to.
Yeah, we'd tell the story again in the same manner which we told the orcs.
She listens very intently. And who has the highest passive insight? I'm betting Red.
Red's passive insight is 22.
22. You notice throughout the conversation as you're recounting this battle again, she's watching all of you. She's listening intently to whatever's being said, but you see her casting glances at Raazu all the time.
Mm-hmm.
She seems to be paying more attention to Raazu than the rest of you, even when Razu's not the one currently speaking.
Raazu would be giving very, tactical, very military maneuvers style, analysis of how the fight went down.
Hey, Brick.
Yeah.
I have this class feature called Know Your Enemy.
Okay.
Right. It gives me information about any creature I interact with out of combat if I want it. I want to know her strength score.
Her strength score?
Yeah.
1,000.
It feels like she's wearing this essentially frilly dress that is badly kept. But what becomes immediately apparent after you guys come in and sit down, the way she's sitting on this throne, she's not reclining, she's not sitting back. It becomes apparent that she's wearing mail underneath it. Looking around the walls of this room, you see many of the weapons hanging up. Axes and swords, pikes, batches of arrows. The types of things that you've seen orc marauders bring into field repeatedly. Her hands, she makes a great show of keeping them kind of folded up in her lap, and you realize that her hands are much, much larger than they should be. And the only reason for that is she's got these dirty cloth gloves pulled on over top of mailed gauntlets. Her strength score is easily a 20, but she's doing everything in her power to make herself look weaker than she is. But she's surrounded by things that are betraying this. This is a seasoned orc warrior. You don't know which of these weapons she could most proficiently kill you with, but you think she could hold her own with any of them.
That is what Adrex suspected.
See, her strength score is easily a 20.
All right.
Do you actually ask her anything about that? Any of the stuff that I just mentioned?
Give me a moment. I need to reflect on this information.
Okay. After you guys recount the tale of this battle, she tells you that she had a cask of her ale sent over to your people, that you may celebrate such a grand victory over this foe. She tells you that sort of war is well done.
Unfortunately, we have nothing with which to tap it.
Well, I thought Adrex said he just pried it open and drank out of the barrel.
Yeah, Adrex would pop open the top and just sort of lick it like some sort of feral cat.
Well, then Raazu would have definitely taken a mug of it at some point.
And it's just very standard ale. It's not going to win any awards. It's basically just there to be able to be brewable in large quantities to get people drunk. That's all that ale exists to do. Her next question to you is whether you plan on offering tribute to the Ice King, as you are in his lands.
Only if asked.
Adrex shrinks a little bit.
I'll look at Raazu. I'll look forward. No, I don't think we are.
And she smiles as though that answer pleases her a little bit.
Sorry, I handle most of the logistics, even though Raazu is in command of anything resembling a military operation. And yeah, I don't think right now we're going to be offering any sort of tribute to the Ice King.
She asks Raazu if she imagines the Ice King is going to descend from the sky on his great and terrible wings, bringing with him hurricane winds and a blizzard the likes of which you've never seen, to land with all of you in his shadow and then ask politely for tribute.
No, I expect not. We've had encounters with dragons of that sort before, and they don't descend themselves. They send their minions.
She nods.
Raazu looks kind of meaningfully at her.
I mean, at this point, we already have a fugitive from the Ice King in our group, so I don't see any reason trying to placate them with gold.
Does Raazu mean to imply that Lady Elaine is one of the Ice King's minions?
Maybe just to gauge her reaction from it.
Okay, make an intimidation check.
I wouldn't really call myself a
fugitive. Refugee?
That's better.
17.
17?
Yep.
You spin that little comment just to see if you can get a rise out of her. And she definitely took note of the way you said it, but she's too smart to rise and give you a reaction to it.
Okay.
Birdie. Do we still have Birdie here? Did he go somewhere?
No, I'm here.
The hell?
Waiting for you to continue.
Okay.
Random encounter to ask.
Mm-hmm.
I gotta make sure I don't get my colors mixed up here. White and blue come back over to your sledge a little while after all your other companions are taken off into the forge. White, you know, he is the young spear-holding orc. Blue, you met only briefly. He met you as you came into the camp and then went back into this pen here. What are you doing on the sledge as they approach? Like, are you still hugging your sticks?
No, I'm just sitting here eating bread.
Just okay.
Watching the elk.
As you're finishing off a loaf of their bread, the one with the blue mark, who is dressed in very heavy furs, strong fur boots, and has a fur hat on his head that flops down over his ears and partially conceals the blue burn mark on the side of his face. But tellingly, he's not wearing any armor like the rest of the rangers you saw on the road. And like White currently is. Blue's not armed at all. He doesn't have any kind of weaponry on him. White has his spear, but he looks like he's just leaning on it. And Blue comes forward and calls up to you in astonishingly perfect Draconic. You've never heard an orc speak Draconic this well before. And he calls up to you and says something like, "You there, boy. Come down here."
Birdie will climb down from the sledge very slowly.
As you do, White approaches, and the two of them are standing in such a way that they've kind of have you backed against the sledge. And Blue looks you over very quizzically. Then he kind of kneels down, and he speaks in a much lower voice. And he says, White doesn't think you're their driver.
Birdie cocks to the side.
He says, White thinks you're lying.
Birdie just kind of shrugs at that. And says, I'm not sure what you want me to say to that.
So I want you to tell me if you're their driver or not.
I have been driving the sledge. And taking care of the elk. So I guess by definition, yeah, I'm the driver.
What did Birdie do with his weapons?
They're stowed in the sledge.
Okay.
Along with where Red keeps his stuff. He's not carrying anything. He doesn't even have a dagger on him.
He turns over to White and gives him a brief nod. White goes forward to the sledge and starts unpacking some of your gear from it, searching through it. Starts taking apart the lashes you have holding the sticks down to the sledge.
No.
He says, you don't mind, of course. We can't have anybody smuggling dangerous materials into her lady's camp.
Birdie says, no, get out of that. That's not yours. And he runs over and he tries to pry the guy away. Like,
now, are you actually trying to pry him away, or are you just making a show of it?
no, I mean, like, let's be realistic. Even if I tried.
Well, that's what I'm asking. Are you actually? If you're trying, that's an opposed check.
Right. Okay, I'll try.
Okay.
Like, get out of the sledge.
Gotta roll. Just beat his strength roll.
Wow, I rolled a 16.
Rolled a 16. Birdie, you yell out, "No, that's not yours!" And you reach up, grab hold of White's arm, and he's this young orc. Like, he's big and bulkier than you, but obviously hasn't seen a lot of combat. More startled than anything at the ferocity with which you grab hold of him and throw him away from this cart. He tumbles backwards into the snow. Blue lets out this peal of laughter. Looks at White, shoos him off, and White kind of shames, takes up his spear, and marches off. Blue looks down at you, gives you a wink, says, "You're no driver." Then he turns and walks back to the pen.
But he looks down at his hands and go, the hell?
Like, don't get me wrong, this was not an easy thing. It's just he rolled a 3 on his strength check. So even with whatever bonuses.
Wow.
Birdie's like, I am so powerful. I never knew.
I am the strongest kobold in the world.
Birdie is very confused by this, and when he winks at him, he looks at him very confusedly.
Well, Blue just says that you're no driver, and then he turns and leaves you there. He walks back to this pen at number 4.
Well, Birdie just kind of shrugs and gets back up on the sledge and continues to eat his bread.
Birdie's having a good day.
What you guys learn in the Forge, as far as the Ice King goes, that, yes, people traveling through the Ice King's land, he does expect tribute. Lady Elaine has an agreement with the Ice King that she delivers him certain amounts of masterwork weapons in order to keep his armies well equipped. It seems that they weren't bragging earlier when they mentioned that she's able to make weapons that never dull and armor that never gets marred. She is, of course, tasked with telling the Ice King, essentially keeping an eye over the outer reaches of his regions where her village is located. But you can tell that she does not take this task particularly seriously. The Ice King is under the delusion that she is one of his servants, but that's definitely not how Lady Elaine sees it. She sees the wisdom in giving him weapons and armor to make sure that to keep him happy and very, very far away. And it sounds like this is an arrangement they have had for a long time. What she wants to know is wherever you're going in the Ice King's realm, whether you would consider it valuable that she share information that she has about avoiding his eyes, to make sure that you don't come across any of his minions that want to know why you're traveling here without paying tribute.
Yep. Adrex blurts out.
Raazu looks a little reproachfully at Adrex, but says nothing.
She asks Adrex, she says, I imagine you have a very interesting story indeed about your time in this land, your life before.
Raazu turns to look at Adrex.
It's not that interesting. It's...
She says
Dragons are dicks, okay? They're mean all the time, and they're... You get, when you're born, and it's like you see it that way, you're just... Oh, why are you like this? And it's really trying, and at a point you just get sick of it, right? So when you just get sick of it, you just kind of leave, because you don't need to deal with this. You're a strong, independent individual. So, yeah.
Strong, independent Dragonborn don't need no dragon god.
She turns back to Raazu and asks how often he's on his moonblood.
Anytime someone brings up dragons, she just says plainly,
I was a dragon once. It sucked, okay?
She tells you that she never takes any of your kind. The Ice King would take that as a great insult. She doesn't want to draw that much attention to herself here. But now that she knows how valuable you think this information might be, she knows that she can up her price.
That's why Raazu was really upset at Adrex just now.
She says that she wants to see this flaming sword that you carry.
I mean, I'll pull it out, but you can't be jumpy about it. Adrex draws the fame more.
And she bids you stand in front of her. And the place where you will be standing is a maybe 5 foot, essentially wooden floor. Where her, with her 20 strength, with one sharp kick, she would be able to knock you backwards into this pit behind you with the smoldering coals below. And she bids you stand in this extremely precarious place.
Yeah. Adrex will do so.
You take out the fame order?
Sounds like, yeah, sounds like a great idea.
While you're looking at the dagger, do you mind if Raazu takes a look at some of your gear?
Well, first she gives Adrex a dismissive shrug of her shoulders and says she wants to see the sword, not the toothpick.
This is the sword. It's great.
If you look at the scale, it's...
That blade was once wielded by a fairy champion, a barbarian.
Yeah.
a Fabarian.
She looks at Red, and she seems to be taken aback to learn that fairies have champions of any kind.
Wait till you see the sword.
And this is all it does?
Adrex says the command word, mumbled under his breath, to ignite it.
And you ignite the sword. And at that, Black, the big bear man who's sitting next to her, he flinches back from it at the sudden envelope of fire that erupts from this sword. She doesn't flinch, but you see her expression become more and more impressed after a moment. Then she gives you a curt nod and she says, "Enough."
Adrex dismisses the flame.
And then she motions back to your seat. And then, Wendy, you had a question for her?
Yeah, I wanted to know if it was okay if Raazu examined some of her work. Raazu has a better eye for it than I do. She has just a way of sensing these things.
Also, she has eyes.
Wendy's also trying to hint to Raazu, hey, there's supposed to be a soul in there. Use your shit.
Lady Elaine turns to Raazu and says, "Be my guest." She motions behind you where there is a series of long swords, short swords, and daggers, and a weapons rack behind you. But she tells you that you won't see metal craft like that far in the south.
No, I suppose not. Divine sense. Any Fey, Fiend, Celestial, or Undead, or I'm sorry, no, not Fey. Fiend, Celestial, or Undead within 60 feet, not behind total cover?
There's not. No, you hit your little Paladin light switch and nothing goes off.
That's encouraging.
Okay, Raazu will walk to the to several of the weapons. Is there a halberd there?
There's not, but you do find a set of unfinished polearm heads that have not been affixed to any sort of staff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Of various shapes, sizes.
Raazu picks up one of those, inspects it.
And it's like she says, it's unlike any kind of metal craft you've seen before.
We were told by your men that that you prefer to capture the metal men alive.
She nods and says, "We were expecting a shipment to come through that's not going to arrive now, thanks to you. It will put us behind schedule."
Wait.
Work it out, Finkenstein.
I'm sorry, it's Finkenstein's monster.
You're expecting a shipment.
She was expecting to use the metal from the patrolman you killed to make a batch of weapons, but you killed the patrolman, so she can't make them.
Sure, but I was under the impression that they had trouble killing them. Like, they had to bring them back alive.
Do you ask her about that?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Adrex would.
She tells you that... Adrex, make an insight check. She tells you that her methods... You understand that she can't reveal any of these secrets to you.
Oh, that's a 15.
15?
Yeah.
She's very vague in her answer. You don't learn anything other than she has some method of capturing them and then working the metal out of them while they're alive. She doesn't give you any specifics. However, you get the sense when she's talking to you that, one, she's been doing this a very, very long time, and two, given her age and how long she's probably been doing this, this is a process that required a lot of refinement over a lot of years. And she's probably gone through many, many underlings before she got it right. But she doesn't give you any specifics about the process as far as how she traps these things or transports them or what she does after she gets them here.
So what do you do with all the weapons?
She trades them to predominantly to the Ice King, who in turn provides her essentially with safety and independence. There are a lot of warring orc tribes further south that make use of these weapons. There were times in antiquity, not so much lately, but even the Great Glimmer has had cause to call upon her from time to time. She says that if you scour the great battlefields of the far north, you will find many of them strewn with her work.
What? It's not Corlat Keep. Where did I get Corlat Keep from? Somewhere. I don't know. The place where we're supposed to go to.
Voronoct.
Vornocht. Castle Vornocht, that's
Do you mention Castle Voronoct?
No. But I do say. So you said that you would be increasing your price.
And she smiles when you say the word price.
Because of my companion.
Well, she says that it would not be fair to blame it all on your companion. The story she heard is all four of you took a hand in destroying this patrolman contingent.
It's true.
Birdie, you're off the hook.
Nailed it.
This is true.
But yeah, she does know paths that you can take in these lands where you will be unseen by the Ice King. Places where you can avoid his villages, woods where his people do not hunt. Of course, this will be more difficult, she says, if she doesn't know where you're going.
The ancient castle of Voronoct.
I believe it's the Snowless Valley?
And she gives a sharp laugh, says it's called that, but it's not snowless anymore. It hasn't been in living memory. She tells you that if the four of you and your driver and your two elks are merely suicidal, she would be happy to oblige and not waste the meat.
And this is taking into account that the reason you're talking to us is because we slew 46 of those middlemen. It's more dangerous than that.
She says if you slew 200 of them and then told me you were going to Voronoct Keep, I would still call you suicidal.
What's so dangerous about the place?
She tells you that she braved the keep grounds once herself when she was much younger. It was still her adventuring days. Before she became wise enough to let her men do that sort of work for her. Keep her out of the risk, so to speak. This is a lesson that the four of you will all learn if you survive. What are you calling it? A quest that you're on?
Treasure hunting?
She explains that treasure hunting is a fool's game. Treasure hunting always ends in death. Better to perfect a craft like she has and make yourself valuable in that way.
It's more like a job.
I
You do something, you get paid.
She tells you that she might have information that will help you in Voronoct. And asks what you know about frost giants.
Very little.
They like the snow.
They like the snow.
Wendy says hopefully, as though it's maybe something is actually named after the thing it is.
We've encountered one or two. We've encountered two before, but we don't remember it.
I like how she asked, what do you know about frost giants? And Raazu just said, oh, very little. No, they're not. They're actually very big. That's why they're called giants. No.
But Raazu does say...
done.
Raazu does say we encountered two of them, but we don't remember it.
I don't remember that.
Exactly. Happened in the Feywild.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They stationed frost giants on top of that dungeon to make sure you guys went through it instead of up and over it. Yeah, I do remember that now.
I don't remember that.
When did I throw frost giants at you guys?
Exactly, that's why we don't remember it.
She tells you that earlier you asked her what she does with all these weapons, and she told you that she trades many of them to warring tribes. Many are delivered to the Ice King.
Okay.
She tells you that her own men also use these weapons.
Aye.
And she
People
describes the evil in Voronacht Keep in terms of a frost giant that she's done business with named Siakchar. Siakchar, she now considers her band to be at war with this giant. When she was very young, she made an axe for him using her incredible techniques. And that she never felt right, particularly working for giants. She has this hatred of the creatures, and she knew that Siakchar often stood in opposition to the Ice King. After delivering this axe, 30 or 40 years later, Siakchar returned, wanting a second axe made for his sister, who Lady Elaine found even more disagreeable and ill-tempered, so she refused. And there was some skirmishing after that. Some of her men were taken and killed. Some of the Frost Giant outriders were seen encroaching in these areas. Eventually, to put an end to it, she invited Siakchar's sister back and told her the reason that she was refused was because she didn't have the means to make the axe, that it required a magical ingredient from Voronacht Keep. And she sent this idiot frost giant on this quest, and she delights using the term quest in front of all of you in this sense. Essentially, she sent Siakchar's sister there to die. She knew that the keep would devour her or kill her, whatever, and it would solve the problem for her. However, the next winter, she started hearing reports of a frost giant zombie patrolling the areas outside of Voronacht.
See, that's what happens.
She says, "Perhaps I offer you then an apology. My decision this past year may have solved my problem and caused one for all of you. You shouldn't worry about the frost giants. They're easy enough to fell. I imagine one that's already dead could be brought down with fire, or," she nods at Adrex, "a magic toothpick. But there's
Really
evil in
good.
that place large enough to turn a giant into that."
Exactly.
Have to be pretty large.
Sometimes big evil comes in a small package.
I mean,
She describes some of the monsters that her and her people have seen in and around the keep in the many decades that she's been in this area. And one type of monster sounds very, very familiar to all of you.
a mimic.
How would you describe it?
Remember, if you think it's a chest.
I would describe literally anything.
She describes a chair, and you're like, no, mimic. No, she
I know
describes
this one.
a hydroloth. Large frog creatures, several of which you've slain, and that don't seem they would fare very well in this type of Arctic climate.
We've dealt with their type before.
At that, she seems taken aback, because she had never seen or heard reports of these kinds of creatures before, and she describes other types of monsters that none of you are familiar with. And over the course of this conversation, she does get more serious and listens more intently to what you're saying. Eventually, she calls an end to the conversation and says that she's tired and has many things to think of. She said, as she asks, "For some reason, Rust has told me you haven't put up your tent."
We don't have a tent.
She shakes her head in disbelief.
The cold doesn't bother me. I don't know what their excuse is.
I grew up on a mountain.
She tells you that it'll be a tight fit, but that the four of you are welcome to kick White out of his hut for the duration of your stay. She thinks there's a great deal of help you can offer each other.
I don't.
It seems
okay,
you've
no.
already negotiated our price. And Raazu looks to Adrex.
What?
At that, she stands up, smiles at Raazu and says, "You're more indebted to me than you know. I hear the Ice King gives a cask of ale for heads like that."
Oh, just give Adrex a chance at the stills, and you'll get more than one cask of ale.
Listen, if you return me alive, you get. Just putting that out there.
And she directs you to... actually, it's Black directs you to one of these 4 huts over here. Belongs to White, who is none too happy about being kicked out for the night.
I don't think we need to kick White out.
I ain't kicking no baby orc out of no tent.
He's not a baby orc. He's not like a fetus with a spear.
I mean, let's be fair. I beat this orc in a contest of strength, so he's kind of a baby orc.
Yeah, I gotta feel like we get over there, we find just our kobold kicking back. I own this tent now. I took him out with a feat of strength.
It's gonna be really awkward when all of you guys are sleeping over here and White's just standing outside of his hut because he's been ordered not to go inside. Is that the state of affairs tonight? Is that what we're doing?
No, I'll tell
No.
White he can go into his tent.
And
I'm sleeping in a tent with White.
Adrex isn't bothered by the cold. He's home.
okay.
Heard he's gonna stay with the sledge.
Yeah,
We're gonna go ahead and take
Raazu.
our break here.
Raazu's gonna stay in the
Give you
in
guys
the
a few
house.
minutes to get your bagels, call your dads.
Yep.
Put Lizagirth on screen here, and when we come back, we'll find out exactly what it is that Lady Elaine wants from you.